How we doing?
Coach, was there anyone who made this 53-man roster that really exemplified themselves in your units and probably put them over the top?
As I think through the roster, I think there's a bunch of guys that had really good pre-seasons. I'm thinking, some of the younger guys. A guy like Rico Payton kind of sticks out because he kind of, I think probably to the general fans and maybe to you guys, he probably came out of nowhere, small school guy that kind of flashed early on in OTAs and then the preseason games, both special teams wise, and I don't want to speak for Joe and the defensive guys, but defensively as well. He's one guy that comes to mind for sure. Naturally, Matt Hayball. That's a little bit of a different.
Well, you go ahead and talk about him, actually.
Yeah. Well, listen, I really like Matt. Going back to his college performance, and then I thought he had a really decent combine, and he goes undrafted, and he kind of fit along the same mold that Lou did last year, and he's gotten better and better and better since he's gotten here. A little rough start maybe in OTAs, but I thought from the day training camp started, he was very, very consistent. I think he just flat out won the job just based on performance. And so, he's kind of got a pretty level head about him, and so I'm excited for his future. But he kind of just outperformed Lou during training camp. Just is what it is.
Is there anything significant you saw from the kickoffs in practice that you might not have anticipated prior to the preseason?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. I think I mentioned this way back in the spring. Because it's all new, we tinkered with a bunch of stuff technique-wise, quite frankly, threw some stuff out, on both sides, kickoff and kick return. That kickoff return technique for those frontline players is really difficult. I mean, those I probably didn't anticipate when we first, brought this new format into the game is how quickly those kickoff players are on top of those kick return players, and that's something that's probably the technique that we've had to work the most on. The veteran players, it's just a totally different deal because obviously in the old format you got to run back and have a little bit of a turn, and there was a little bit of time on your side where now there's none. So, and then really just some scheme stuff. The model we're working on right now with the setup zone with 7 on the line and 2 off the line, it kind of limits you a little bit what you can do schematically. I know this is a common narrative, but I think there's a lot of coaches that probably didn't put their cards on the table, if you will, in the preseason. I think there was a lot of kind of vanilla type of returns. I think you're going to probably see that change a little bit. I think now you're going to see some different schemes. We've obviously practiced a bunch of things that we, have in our menu of returns that we didn't show either, and so I think that's going to be a kind of across the board type of thing. I don't think that's anything, but there's always some unique things that come up. This whole onside kick thing is going to be unique because it hasn't been done yet. It wasn't done in the preseason, so there's going to be a team probably this weekend that's trailing in the fourth quarter that's going to go onside kick, and all of a sudden we revert back to the old rules, and so. There was some penalty stuff that came up. I don't know if there was a memo that came out this week that cleaned up a couple things with a couple of minor tweaks. The ball now on a regular kickoff, if it's not an onside kick, has to be on the tee. There were some teams that were messing around with leaning the ball up against the tee and kind of kicking some knuckleballs, if you will. They cleaned that up. If the ball has to be in the well on the tee on a regular kickoff. There was some penalty enforcement stuff. For years and years and years, if there was a penalty on the return team, like an offsides formation, it was either a decline it or a re-kick. It really didn't make sense because there was no tack-on option. With the new format, we've kind of changed that as well. So now there's an illegal formation by the return. That wasn't the case in the preseason. We had one of those against us in this last preseason game. So now that's going to be a tack-on foul. So they married it up with the kickoff. And so, I've been fortunate to be kind of on the weekly calls and the updates and all that stuff with the league and the officiating and all that. And I think we're in a good spot heading into the first week.
You guys tried out a few punters. After seeing those workouts, what made you want to stick with Matthew? And could you just maybe speak about the general confidence you also have in him?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I like after the preseason, I kind of like bringing in the best free agents that are on the street, that are out there. So, you always have to have a ready list. And so, as we know, there's really no depth chart for kicker and punter and snapper. And so it's always good to know the best guys that are out there. The two guys we brought in, I thought, did really well in the preseason at their respective clubs. Kind of just wanted to see where they were at. We also brought in a bunch of returners to work out, as maybe some practice squad options. And so to have them catch off a live foot rather than a jugs machine, that was kind of the workout. It really wasn't more, it was more about having a ready list than it was about competition for Matt. Quite frankly, that's really what the workout was about. So I know sometimes that can appear as if you're trying to replace your guy. That really wasn't the case. Now, those two guys, Corliss and Waitman and Trent Gill, I thought really had strong preseasons, both veteran guys. And so it's kind of interesting to see where they were at along with the returners.
The returner chart, that was the receivers that came the same day as the punter?
It was. All those guys had, all those receivers that came in had some type of returner value. One guy was obviously UFL, and a couple guys, Smith Marset and some of those guys, John Ross, all those guys that came in, we put through a returner workout as well. And so, I've said this before, I really believe in my heart with this new format, your returner depth is going to be really important. I think as we go through this season, I think that's going to show up for a lot of teams. I think the teams with more returner depth, you're going to see it's going to be a big deal in the start drive.
You just kind of answered that. That's something you covered, though. Like, you guys had the claim on I can't say his name, the running back.
Kane, yeah.
Yeah, that's something that you're looking for actively?
Yeah, so, at the cut downs, we're looking at everybody. We're looking at core players, returners, specialists, all that. And that was a guy that, I've always had a lot of respect for, playing against him. Obviously, he had some type of medical issue. I can't really speak on that, but that didn't, so that didn't work out. But that's, yeah, so when we're at the claims, we're looking at all those guys. I looked at a bunch of guys that are, also core players. You're always looking to, guys that go to practice squads, guys that don't go to practice squads, and to see, because I think I think everyone's always looking for the big replacements, but the bottom of the roster, if you will, those guys can be as valuable. And from being here all the years, we've claimed some guys that have really helped us out. So that's kind of what the process was there, thought process.
So is there, I guess, a solid return besides Rashid, or is that going to be rotational? Or is it going to be situational? How's that going to?
Yeah, you guys have probably seen a bunch of the guys we've had back there during the preseason and during practice, and I feel like we got a good number of guys back there. I think we have a number of different options right now on the roster for kick returner. Obviously, Sheed's going to be back there as kick and punt guy, but there's a number of guys that have done it, and so I feel pretty confident. But you're always looking for, when you have a receiver on the practice squad, it's always nice to have a guy that could bring up if you ever have an issue. You could elevate a guy that has dual returner ability. So I think with this new format, it's kind of like that. The more you can do, kind of guys are going to be important. But I like where we are heading into game one. Appreciate it, guys.